Campaigning for General Election 2024 is well and truly upon us, with attempts to capture the cult of personality seemingly more important to our current government than substance. In my last video, I asked if people were okay with FFG in power, and the resounding response was no, we are not okay. And so the question becomes, how do we break the cycle? Well, let's explore that today. So right off the bat, I'm not going to tell people how to vote or who to vote for. It's not my place, or anyone else's place for that matter, to do so. Voting is a personal thing, and it is up to each of us to take the time to research our local candidates and explore the various parties on offer. I am simply going to offer up my opinions as I always do. And as I've said before in previous videos, and in the interest of transparency since we are in the midst of an election campaign, I am not now, nor have I ever been, a member of or affiliated with in any way any political party. I'm just an average voter trying to find, if not the best option, then the least worst option. Do I have biases? Of course, I'm human after all, and we all have our own biases and preferences and priorities based on our own lives. It's precisely because we all have our own biases that we're having an election in the first place. But in reality, there is no political party in Ireland right now that fully aligns with my views on everything. So I have to prioritise the most important issues and vote while holding my nose on others. So let's get to it. Obviously, if we truly want rid of Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael and the Greens, then the most important thing to do is not give them any preference. Well, that and actually get out and vote, because as I said in my last video, Fine Gael's and Fianna Fáil's voter base certainly will get out and vote to protect their own interests. As for the Greens, well, I think the Greens have done enough to make sure that very few, if any, of their candidates get elected. Will they be wiped out completely like they were in 2011? Personally, I can't see that happening, simply because I think some of the constituency changes might help them cling on to one or two seats. That and the fact that their core voter base will get out and vote. But hey, we live in hope. And a quick note on the constituency changes, I've covered this topic in a previous video, which I'll link in the description below, so be sure to check it out to see if any changes affect you and your area. As for the other two, ousting them is a far harder task. They have always been the biggest parties in Ireland, and as a result, they have voters who will never change simply because they've always voted a certain way. Some people treat political parties like sports teams with unwavering support regardless of their record, and Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil have those types of voters in spades. They also have the wealthy and the haves who will get out to vote to protect themselves. But at this stage, the biggest issue with ousting these two is that they have effectively become one and the same. Since the confidence and supply agreement in the wake of the 2016 election, the divisions between these two parties have been crumbling away, and in my opinion, they have become united in their lust for power at all costs. This pantomime of sniping and bitching at each other may well be on full show right now, but let's be real here. The instant the results are in, the pair of them will call scene on their little show, shake hands, and head straight back into Dáil Éireann together, if that's what it takes to regain and retain power. They are, in essence, two cheeks of the same arse, and whatever minority mudguard they tempt into power with them will be the shite in between. The sheer numbers game needed to banish Fianna Gael to opposition benches will be monumental, because they have literally stacked the deck in their favour. And yes, to save myself some time, I'll just refer to them as Fianna Gael, since they're basically one and the same anyway. So how do we deal with this? What are our options? Well, in my opinion, there really is only one solution. If we look at this from a pure numbers perspective, the only answer is to vote Sinn Féin. And yes, I can already hear the replies flooding in, and I'll address that in a moment, but it's very simple. No other party has the number of candidates needed to break the cycle. And even then, Sinn Féin will need absolutely everything to go right for them, and a willing coalition partner for them to be in with a chance of ousting Fianna Gael. And quite honestly, even if everything does go right for them, it still might not be enough. Such is the uphill battle facing anyone looking to give Fianna Gael the boot. The other parties are too small and fractured on both the left and right, and not running enough candidates to join Fine Gael, Fianna Fianna Fáil and Sinn Féin as a big party. Independents, sure, there are plenty of them, but they have their own problems. The main one being how many independents are Fianna Fáil or Fine Gael in all but name. Well, that's on you to research the independents in your area. Have a look at their voting record on the Oireachtas website if they are a sitting TD. It'll tell you everything you need to know. And by their very nature, independents are, well, independent. They are disparate and stand alone. A united front of like-minded independents would be far better served forming a party to run on a shared platform. But that's just a numbers game, and that's not really the only reason to vote for someone now, is it? So let's look at policies. And before we dive in on that subject, let's be real here. Every single party is going to tell you what they think you want to hear, and they will promise the sun, moon and stars for your vote. The problem lies in attempting to sift through the bullshit and lies to find the sound and achievable policies. And even then, it's a leap of faith, isn't it? Back in 2011, when I was younger and far less cynical than I am now, I absolutely bought everything the Labour Party were selling. I believed them. I truly believed they would burn the bondholders and would temper Fine Gael's ruthless streak when it came to austerity. I believed they cared about the ordinary workers that keep the world turning. I was fooled. Labour turned their backs on everything a true Labour Party should stand for, with the result that they were all but destroyed in the next election, and a new party was born from their failures, one whose vision was to protect workers the way Labour should have. I was far too naive. Labour's betrayal ignited my cynicism. It would have been very easy for me to let that cynicism take hold and lose all hope. But my hope has not taken flight just yet. I still believe that we can change Ireland for the better, and I'm still willing to give other parties a shot. Yes, they may fail, but as long as there is a chance that they will follow through on what they're promising, then we can't lose hope. And yes, I am a sucker for idealism. So back to policies. Let's just focus on the three big parties for now and then discuss the smaller and newer parties in a moment. Right, so what are the biggest issues in Ireland right now? Housing, health, cost of living and immigration. I have covered these issues extensively, and I think it's fair to say that on all four of those issues and more, Fianna Gael have failed miserably, and that's putting it mildly. They have had all the time and in recent years all the money in the world to address these issues, and they haven't bothered. And in my view, as I said in my last video, it is because this is the Ireland they want. An Ireland that prioritises the haves and the wealthy over the ordinary people. Now sure, Sinn Féin are flaky at best on immigration. So yeah, it'll probably be more of the same there. But on the other three issues, they have presented clear, comprehensive and costed plans to right the wrongs of Fianna Gael. They are offering a real alternative on those three issues. And to paraphrase Meatloaf, 3 out of 4 ain't bad. Will they manage to achieve everything they set out to? I doubt it, at least not in the lifetime of one government anyway. I keep coming back to the old saying when it comes to weight loss. You didn't gain your extra weight in one day, so it won't take only one day to lose it. The same will undoubtedly ring true here. The mess we find ourselves in was achieved over a long period of time, and no party will be able to quickly untangle the mess and undo the damage that Fianna Gael have caused. It will take a massive effort and a monumental mindset shift from the civil service and others, but even incremental improvements at this stage would be welcome. As far as I'm concerned, the foundation of any functioning society is health and housing, and for me, Sinn Féin are offering a clear alternative on both. I have to vote for the party that are offering hope to those families of children with scoliosis and those languishing on waiting lists, among other rampant issues in our health service. And as a member of Generation Rent, I have to choose the party that are offering a way out of the mess that is our current housing system. I have to choose the only party that can realistically take on and beat Fianna Gael. So back to those comments that I can still hear being typed. What about the right-wing parties? What about independents? Look, I'm not saying not to vote for them. Again, I'm not telling anyone how to vote, I'm merely giving my opinion. And my opinion is this: if you don't put Sinn Féin high up on your preference list, then I can almost guarantee you that Fianna Gael will waltz back into government. By all means, give whatever party you feel strongly about a preference alongside Sinn Féin. But if you want to get rid of Fianna Gael, then there is really only one party that can do it. But if we all vote for those parties, then they could be the ones to topple Fianna Gael, I hear you say. Well, yes, I suppose that might be true. If they get every single candidate elected, then sure. Is that possible? Anything is possible. Is it likely? I can't see it myself. For one thing, they are very new. I've given this example before, but look at the Social Democrats. They formed in 2015 and had two very experienced and established politicians in Roisin Shortall and Catherine Murphy for name recognition, and yet they are still very much in the growth stage of their party. They may well end up as a coalition partner in government with Sinn Féin, but they would be very much the junior party in that scenario. The electorate have to see a party working in their interests before they can truly grow into a force that can challenge the status quo, and that takes time. Sure, just look at how long it has taken for Sinn Féin to get there. One issue the right-wing parties seem to have resolved at least partially is how fractured they are. Some of the parties have come together to run under the National Alliance banner, although they will not appear under that name on the ballots due to Electoral Commission rules. So this issue has only been partially resolved. And is it well known that they are under one banner? Because I only found this out when researching for this video, even though I follow politics quite closely. But here's the main issue for me. I'm not right-wing. I could leave it at that, but I do truly wonder, is there a real appetite for true right-wing politics in this country? Do we really want more extreme versions of Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael, who are both centre-right parties? I thought that's who we were trying to avoid. And before someone tries to tell me that Fianna Gael are left-wing socialists, let me point out a few things. Firstly, yeah, sure, on social issues, they tend to flock left. Fair enough. But on economic issues, they are absolutely right of centre at best and full-on right-wing at worst. They have presided over, encouraged and enabled the privatisation of so many of our core services. How could they not be right-wing? The left don't do that. They also prioritise big business and wealth extraction over the needs of the many. They would be happy to let the market fix housing. Leo Varadkar ran a campaign telling us that welfare cheats cheat us all. For f***'s sake, how much more evidence is needed? They are right-wing. So back to the right-wing parties on offer. I've said most of this before, but I'll say it again. Do your research before voting. I've had a look at their policies, and while yes, they are strong on immigration, and that will hold an appeal to many, this is not a one-issue election. Immigration is not the only issue in Ireland right now. And I know what people will say, that the housing crisis is caused by immigration. No, it is not. Does immigration have an impact on housing? Absolutely. But the link between the housing crisis and immigration is where I find myself shaking my head. The left can only see the market forces and economic issues as the driver for our housing crisis, while the right can only see immigration and the extra demands it brings as the root cause. In my view, neither are right. It is a mix of both. The levels of immigration we are seeing is absolutely putting extra demand on the already low supply we have, while developers and vulture funds have been allowed to cultivate a wealth extraction model through housing that is destroying home ownership rates among my generation and Gen Z and crippling every renter with extortionate rents. Even if we had no immigration, we would still have a housing crisis, albeit perhaps a few years behind where we are now. But both factors are true and are not mutually exclusive. I've done multiple videos about my stance on immigration, and yes, I do believe we are far past our capacity and need a major overhaul of our immigration policies. And no, Sinn Féin are not offering that. No big or established party is, unfortunately, especially when they all continue to conflate legal immigration through work permits and the likes with people taking advantage of the asylum asylum system. So while I'm not happy about that, I still feel I have to vote Sinn Féin simply because of everything else they are offering, because as I said, this is not a one-issue election. If we were to lock Ireland down tomorrow and take in no more migrants of any kind, we would still have a housing crisis because of the market factors pricing people into homelessness. And at the same time, the levels of immigration are causing us to need ridiculously high social and affordable housing targets, which may well be impossible to achieve. But when I look at the right-wing manifestos and policies, I don't see any firm commitment on social housing, for example. I see talk of modular homes and some targets for affordable housing, but for me, they're thin on the ground, especially compared to other parties. For example, the Irish Freedom Party want intergenerational mortgages, an idea straight from the Boris Johnson Tory playbook. The problem is not the repayments on mortgages, it's the fact that houses are too expensive to get a mortgage of any length in the first place. I'd encourage you to look at their policies for yourselves, but past reducing immigration, they offer very little in the way of housing, in my view. The right wing are also not traditionally known for looking after the working class or those on social welfare or those people with disabilities and their carers. This is borne out in the policy documents of these parties. There's no mention of social welfare at all, and the only party that mentions carers is Independent Ireland, who, to their credit, want to do away with the means testing of carers, something I wholeheartedly agree with. For everything other than immigration, though, other parties are offering better, more fleshed out options, in my opinion. And as I've said before, I don't like labelling myself because there is a tendency to dismiss views out of hand when that happens. But I would say I'm more towards centre on social issues and very much left on economic issues. While the right are strong on hate speech and immigration, for example, I do not agree with their anti-abortion views. But here's the problem for me. I am very much pro-choice, but I am also someone who knows what a woman is. I'm sure you can see the predicament I find myself in. I cannot align fully with my natural home of the left, and I can't align with the right either because on most things I find myself at odds with them. Ultimately, when it comes to filling out the ballot paper, I will have to hold my nose and vote for parties I don't agree with on other big issues simply to avoid the status quo of Fianna Fáil, who hold the vast majority of these views that I don't agree with. I feel what Ireland really needs is more centre-left parties to combat the centre-right of Fianna Fáil, as far anything become too myopic and entrenched in single-minded and all-or-nothing ideologies. And so we're back to Sinn Féin. As I said, it is my view that they are the only hope to rid us of Fianna Fáil on government benches. By all means, vote other parties too. We need more balanced representation, but do your research before you do. 2 years ago when I started this channel, I was far more hopeful for a Sinn Féin-led government. Now I find myself tempering my expectations and find myself disappointed with the party that should have been a slam dunk. Now they are the least worst option, but still our best bet at real change. People may not be delighted with voting for them, but I honestly believe that if we don't, we will be stuck with another 5 years of the two parties who have caused all of the issues I listed in my last video. But here is something positive about a Sinn Féin-led government for those worried about the possibility, which may allay some of those fears. If they do get into government, they will be the single most scrutinised party ever on government benches. The baying media will have an absolute field day with any mistakes or missteps from Sinn Féin, and if Sinn Féin fail to deliver, they will be held accountable by the media, and I reckon there is a far bigger chance of the government actually falling if they do up. As a prime example, let's look at Fine Gael's candidate John McGahon. The pictures and videos that have been circulating through the news and on social media are shocking. This man's reputation precedes him for anyone who follows politics, and yet Fine Gael are standing by him and running him as a candidate, and the media has made a little for show fuss in my opinion, but it has been pretty much dropped. Now ask yourself, how different would the coverage look if it was a Sinn Féin candidate? we'd have a 10-page pull-out in the newspapers covering every aspect of the story with Twix ads on every page, while RTE would have Homer Badman-style round-the-clock coverage. So at least we have that to keep Sinn Féin honest if they do get into power, which, to be fair, is what we should have already for any government. Anyway, what do you think? Who will you be voting for and why? Do you think there will be any surprises in this election? Will there be any big-name casualties? What would be your preferred coalition? And do you think we can finally rid ourselves of Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and hit that bell icon to be notified of new content. If you want to support the channel, you can buy me a coffee or a super thanks, which is greatly appreciated, and a huge thank you to those of you that already have. You can also follow me on Twitter. Until next time, slán go fóill.